Dragon Age is one of the most iconic fantasy RPGs of all time, but there hasn't actually been a new game in over a decade. Dragon Age Inquisition was the last proper Dragon Age game, but the wait is finally coming to an end because we recently got our first proper look at Dragon Age The Veilguard, previously known as Dragon Age Dreadwolf. Now, the project was announced back in 2022, but has reportedly been in development since 2015. Now, the slow progress has been seemingly due to a number of changing visions for the game, as it was initially envisioned as a smaller scale RPG, or at least small scale by Dragon Age standards. But after nearly a decade of waiting, the next installment is gearing up for a huge release in the fall of this year. And in today's video, we are going to dive into the world of Dragon Age and discuss the latest news and everything you should know about the upcoming game. We have a lot to talk about, so check the video chapters for easy viewing, and let's dive in. So first things first, Dragon Age The Veilguard will be releasing in the fall of 2024, pending no delays, and it'll release on the PlayStation 5, the Xbox Series consoles, and the PC. So even though it's been in development since the 8th generation console era, it will not be releasing on those systems, aka the PS4 and Xbox One. That being said, EA has already confirmed that there will be a 60 FPS performance mode in addition to the quality mode, which I'm assuming will be targeting 30 FPS, and the game will be playable 100% offline. There will be no online component to this game at all, and you won't have to make an EA account to play it, and there will be no microtransactions either, which is all seemingly good news. And according to BioWare, this will be a full and complete game on day one, and I'm very happy to hear that after BioWare's last game, that being Anthem. It's really nice to see EA allowing BioWare to get back to what they're good at, that being offline single-player RPGs. Now, as for the moment-to-moment gameplay, Dragon Age The Veilguard is going to play very differently from the other games in the series, but the core identity of it being a class-based fantasy RPG are still there. In fact, they may be better than ever, depending on how married you are to the original Dragon Age gameplay loop. You get to pick your race from a list of 4 options, those being human, dwarf, elf, and Canary, and then you'll pick your class. There will be 3 classes at launch, those being the warrior, the mage, and the rogue. The warriors will command the flow of the battlefield and will have access to a variety of weapons such as swords, shields, and even some two-handed weapons that will deal extra damage. Now, the mage will be your standard magic-based class, with there being options for both close and long-range combat builds, which I think is a nice touch. A lot of times fantasy RPGs will make the mage a long-range character, but it seems like Dragon Age The Veilguard will allow you to fine-tune to one or the other, which will make for some really interesting potential character builds. The third and final class, the rogue, will focus on quick movement and fast strikes. You'll have access to dual swords if you want to slice people up, or a bow for longer range attacks. Next up, let's go over the combat details, as we have some brand new information from Game Informer from the game director that gives us a ton of new details. Now, each of the 3 classes will all have their own special abilities during combat called the resource systems, with one example being the rogue having one called momentum, which builds up as you land consecutive hits with your bow, and when you use the momentum, you have the ability to quickly hip fire arrows at enemies. The warrior class also seems to have a momentum attack that lets you use their shield as a projectile, so it basically means that this is effectively your chargeable super attack that a lot of action RPGs have. The combat itself will be built around real-time dodging, parrying, and countering. BioWare has described the new combat system as a system of sophisticated animation, canceling, and branching that will involve in risk-reward attacks in order to break the layers of the enemy's armor. Enemies will also apparently have elemental weaknesses and resistances that you'll have to learn in order to fully take advantage of them during combat. You'll also be able to chain attacks with your 2 squad mates, possibly resulting in a giant AoE attacks that can do serious damage to entire groups of enemies. So just from a brief glance of the gameplay, it seems like this combat is going to be very deep and take a lot of time to master. And we also have some brand new combat details from Game Informer recently, as they have an exclusive up on their page. From the game director, Corinne Bush, they said this, and I quote, "I think the first thing to keep in mind is that the combat in this franchise has been an evolution. Every single entry reimagines what the combat is like, and I would like to say our goal was to make sure that we had a system that allowed players to feel like they were able to step into the world of Thetis. They're not a player observing from afar, they're inside of this world, being this authentic world that's brought to life. The combat system needs to support that, so you are in control of every single action, every block, every dodge, every swing of your sword." Bush says that players complete every swing in real time, with particular attention paid to animation, swing through, and canceling. Game Informer then said, on the topic of canceling, I watched Bush bookmark combos with a quick dash. With this mechanic, players can pause a combo status with a dash to safety and continue the combo where they left off afterwards. Alongside the dash, there's a parry for some classes, the ability to charge moves, and a revamped healing system that allows players to quickly use potions by pressing the right on the D-pad. The game director then says that each character will play the same in a way regardless of class, in that you execute light and heavy attacks with these same buttons, use abilities with these same buttons, and interact with combo wheel in the same way. The interviewer then said, during my demo at one point, we use a sword and shield warrior Canary Minbari that hip fires and aims with their shield to throw it like Captain America while hammering down the big damage with a sword. Pressing the same buttons as the mage might throw out a magical ranged attacks instead of a shield. Next up, we also got some new details and information regarding abilities and skill trees from the Game Informer article. They said this, and I quote, "Abilities like a Spartan kick from a warrior or mage's firewall that deals continuous damage add to the player's repertoire of combat options. Warriors can parry incoming attacks, staggering enemies in the process. Rogues have a larger parry window, and mages can't parry at all, but instead throw up a shield that blocks all incoming damage, so long as they have the mana to sustain the shield." The game director says this, and I quote, "That is just the baseline that allows us to get that level of immersion of I'm actually in this world, I'm a part of it." But again, the abilities, the strategy, linking my companion's abilities together to perform devastating combos, that is really where the depth and complexity comes into play. This extends to companions who are at your choosing. Bring 3 abilities of their 5 total into combat, executed either with the quick select buttons or the pause and play combat wheel. Every time you rank up a companion's relationship level, you'll unlock a skill point to spin specifically on that companion. This is how you unlock new combat abilities, though companion skill trees pale in comparison to the Rook's expansive tree, which features passive abilities, combat abilities, and more, as well as paths to 3 unique class specializations. You can find the skill tree for Rook and companions within Veilguard's starter pause menu. This menu contains pages for Veilguard's map, journal, character sheets, and a library for lore information too. Here you can cross-compare equipment and equip new gear for Rook and companions, build weapon loadouts, and customize your abilities and builds via the aforementioned skill tree, which according to the interviewer looks relatively easy to understand. Now, in addition to the gameplay, the classes, and the abilities, there will be 6 factions for you to interact with and potentially join. Faction choices influence your dialogue choices and potentially even the power balance of the entire region, depending on what favors you end up doing for certain characters. The first faction is the Grey Wardens, who are an ancient order sworn to fight darkspawn and monsters, and apparently have supernatural powers to some degree. The Veil Jumpers are explorers of ancient elven runes and are apparently welcoming to newcomers, assuming they're brave enough to commit the cause. The Shadow Dragons are a resistance group and are determined to bring justice to the civilians of Tevinter, who are currently suffering from corrupt rulership. The Lords of Fortune are explorers and treasure seekers from Rivian, who will surely keep things interesting as you explore the land. The Morn Watch are an elite necromantic order that watches over the Grand Necropolis. And finally, the Antivan Crows are an order of assassins that are known as the Silent Protectors of the Antiva. So moving right along to the character creation in Dragon Age The Veilguard, the creative director of the game, John Epler, recently stated in the interview that he wanted this game to be a throwback to classic Dragon Age, and that mentality went all the way down to the character creation and the choice to give you as many options as they did. Previous Dragon Age games all worked off of each other in a way that Dragon Age The Veilguard will not be, but the team still wanted the experience to feel super deep and personal, which is why they're giving you this much power with the character creator. You'll also be able to use tarot card system to give extensive background to your character within the world, so that way you're not a blank slate to the Dragon Age cast of characters, as you'll be able to give yourself a place in the lore before the main story starts. BioWare has also confirmed that some existing Dragon Age characters will appear throughout the story, but don't expect anything too crazy, or maybe you should expect something crazy. That being said, BioWare has confirmed that while you won't be able to import characters or save files into Dragon Age The Veilguard, you will be able to recreate your character from Dragon Age Inquisition, and the team has suggested that the choices given to you during character creation will actually allow you to more or less completely recreate your Dragon Inquisition character and background. So if you want to play this game as if it's a sequel to your playthrough of Dragon Age Inquisition, that will seemingly be an option. It won't be as seamless as a direct save file import, but it will still be an option, which I think that's a pretty awesome touch for longtime fans. Now, in addition to the character and character creation, BioWare has also confirmed that, like previous games, Dragon Age The Veilguard will have romance options, and there will even be 7 companion options for you to meet. Combat parties have also been confirmed to be 3 players this time around, likely in order to accommodate for the real-time combat system. Now, next up, we also have some details regarding the quests in Dragon Age The Veilguard. BioWare has confirmed that the quests that you'll be sent on throughout the game are all handcrafted and mission-based, with a ton of secrets to find and alternate routes to discover if you go in with an open mind. There are also some open-ended areas meant for exploration, which will be really fun. Now, throughout your time exploring, you won't take direct control of your companions, as they will kind of have minds of their own, but you're still able to give them commands in the pause menu, so that aspect of the franchise has been altered a bit, but I think that's a good compromise for the real-time combat system, because to me this combat system looks really awesome. I totally understand the skepticism for longtime Dragon Age fans, because obviously this is a pretty huge change to the formula, but I think it's all going to be worth it in the end. Now there's also going to be a hub area for the character to call home, similar to Skyhold or the Normandy in previous Bioware RPGs. You'll use the downtime between main plot points to learn about the world and interact with the companions, eventually unlocking the romance options. But Bioware has also confirmed that each of the companions will have unique missions tied to them, which will encourage interacting with all of them as much as you can, or possibly doing multiple playthroughs to see all of the content. The main theme of this game seems to be darkness and light, as it's deliberately designed to make the light and dark really clash with each other, both tonally and visually. To quote the team, when everything is dark, nothing really feels dark. For this one, we really wanted to build that contrast again. They also teased that certain party members may actually get killed off depending on your choices, which may or may not mean party member permadeath in combat as well. Overall, Dragon Age The Veilguard is shaping up to be a very interesting and very different installment to the long-running franchise, but I think all of these changes are being made for the better. I know a lot of people are going to miss the old school Dragon Age design, but if you want to play that gameplay, the other Dragon Age games are available and ready to play right now. Like after this recording, I'm probably going to boot up Dragon Age Inquisition and start a new playthrough. The Veilguard could be a breath of fresh air that Bioware needs in order to kickstart a revival for the studio, because after Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem, they really need a confidence boost. Obviously, we should be holding the final judgment of the game for when we actually get to play it for ourselves, but personally, I'm really excited for Dragon Age The Veilguard. And if you still need to be more convinced, the game is launching in just a few months, so we'll likely be getting a ton of new information as the weeks go by. I'm curious to hear your thoughts though in the comment section. Let me know down below. If you enjoyed my coverage, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button with your notifications turned on so you're not missing out on any future gaming news and updates. And until next time, this has been Wes, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.